is being, you know, why is the FG telling us this? And I ask that because the FG, especially the second sum, according to the government, the country lost 16.3 trillion naira to oil theft. The people responsible for securing Nigeria's oil resources, incidentally, are the government. So is the government giving us a report card attesting to its failure to do its job, and then telling us about subsidy, which has gone under so many preposterous names, under recovery, this, that, names that we create uniquely in Nigeria to describe incompetence. We say we are subsidizing. Before the current administration, which has some 40-something days left to run, entered office, they stated clearly that subsidy was a fraud. Indeed, the then candidate Buhari said subsidy was a fraud. He came in, and on the basis of that, he started lifting the prices of fuel. Today, we are where we are. We've had ups and downs, but it boggles the mind to hear us still talking about subsidy under any guise. And so you're coming to stand up and tell me that, according to this story, a fantastic report has been made and submitted to the president. You really, really want me to celebrate the fact that you get up and say the opportunity cost in terms of our educational sector, in terms of our public infrastructure, in terms of our healthcare and everything. Think of what has been lost. It's approximately 70-something billion dollars when you put it in another currency. And imagine that compared with what we've spent on other parts. We've cut our ability to build the other sectors because we're doing this so-called subsidy. And again, you get up at the end of the vision and tell me you've done a great job to create the findings, and a set of recommendations have been sent to the president. To do what with exactly in 40-something days? It tires me to hear of stories, because is it that people are just trying to say, look, I still have 2 more weeks, I have a salary to earn, so I'm doing this. You're coming, I'm sure the cost of even arranging this NEITI summit may have taken care of 1 or 2 barrels of oil, if you actually look at it. But that's neither here nor there. I feel at this point, people should just quietly sit down, run the clock out, and leave their offices. Next story, please. Why are you telling me?
Okay, well, let's move on to the next story. Joseph joined us a few seconds ago. I think Joseph is trying to get the connection right, but let us know what your thoughts are. The WhatsApp number to be a part of the conversation is 0809 444 0981. You can also tweet at Smooth981 and catch the live stream as well. I want us to go to a medical related story. We'll come back to the beauty that is petrol in just a few, but let's go on to this story, and it comes from The Guardian. Nigerian doctors abroad under the aegis of the Diaspora Medical Associations have petitioned the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, rejecting the bill proposed by Ganu Johnson that seeks to restrict newly qualified medical doctors and others from leaving Nigeria.
A lot has already been said about the story. I think, broadly speaking, it is a bad idea, which in my view did not have sufficient thought before it was even proposed. I think it has met with a lot of negative reception, but the doctors abroad are making their input, which is very valuable. They already happen to be some who were either recruited or who made a choice, which was open to them, to go abroad and practice their profession for a myriad of different reasons, which many people have already talked about. At the end of the day, I think, there was something that came out a couple of days ago where they said that the UK, for instance, put Nigeria on a red list and said they wouldn't overtly go out and look for doctors from Nigeria and 53 or so other countries. So we're not unique in that regard, but nowhere did they write that they would reject individuals who are seeking employment in their country. So I think for some people, maybe in government circles who may not think it all through, they may have been celebrating that. But nothing to celebrate. Doctors, again, are some of the most intelligent people on the surface of planet Earth. They have every eminent capacity to get up and write letters of application, sit for and pass exams, which they have obviously passed to become doctors, and go and work where they will. The question or the bottom line has to be about the legislature and the government in general, providing the conditions here in Nigeria where doctors can practice their life-saving craft in comfort, safety, and with a sense of professional satisfaction within Nigeria. That should be where, a National Assembly's efforts should be directed. Anything short of that simply means the National Assembly is engaging in dereliction of duty, which, frankly speaking, looking at the high levels of poverty in Nigeria, the high levels of insecurity, the broad hopelessness, I would say the National Assembly has been derelict in its duty for decades.
Okay, and let's go on to some messages that we have coming through on WhatsApp. This one is from JP. JP says, I couldn't agree more with the analysts, AB, on the prolific spending by an administration whose time is up. Shouldn't EFCC be more dedicated at this stage? Who is punished for this excesses? And Ajayi says, it's scandalous for the federal government to continue to showcase its gross incompetence by telling us $16 trillion worth of crude oil is stolen, yet nobody is held accountable. This can only happen in Nigeria. All right, let's move on to the next story. Good morning, Joseph, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning. It's been a funny morning, for me. I don't know.
Oh, all right. Well, we're thrilled that you were able to join us.
Thank you.
All right, so let's go on to Vanguard. Now, NUPENG, which is the Nigeria Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, has warned the federal government not to contemplate the removal of subsidy on petrol without local refining capacity. And this is in view of the socioeconomic complications that businesses and citizens could face.
So is that for me?
Yes, Joseph.
You see, I think the labor union has to tread very carefully because the situation in the country requires that we need to take this drastic action. And the challenge is that it's a question of the egg and the chicken, which comes first. It's a dilemma that we find ourselves in. These so-called refineries are obsolete. They are absolutely scraps. The manufacturers maybe can't even find parts for some of those things they have there. So for you to build a refinery, the refineries, or rebuild the refineries, you need humongous amounts of money, which you can't get from anywhere. Nigeria is broke. The workers have got to face the reality. Nigeria is broke. We don't want to go into how we got broke. I mean, you're just talking about declaration, we are losing 16 trillion to theft and all that. We don't want to go into all of how we got where we are. But the reality is that we are broke. We don't have the money to build refineries. Even this work, they are saying they are rebuilding, they are refurbishing, they are rehabilitating. Where has it gotten us? It's not the first time they are rehabilitated these refineries and what came out of it. So instead of taking us on the same route we've taken several times without results, it's better that we sit down and really face the reality of what is on ground. And workers, they play on emotions most of the time, but it's not time for sentiment. You have to look at it. If you want to get things working, you need to get this money we are spending in so-called subsidy on the table first, and then decide what you're going to do. But the amount they are even borrowing can't even solve the problem because they can't build any new refinery anyway. So what the government needs to do is to encourage people who can build refineries like Dangote and so on. Let's all depend on government to build refineries to meet this need. It's a very important need for the economy. But over time, with people who are given licenses are sold to friends, are given to this person and that person. How many refineries have been built? If not Dangote, who came on board now recently and is doing what he's doing. How many persons who got licensed to be private refineries are built? Those are areas I think workers should focus attention on. Why is that not working? Why are people not enabled to be able to build private refineries, I'm sorry, all over the place? There are some modular refineries that have been built here and there, but they are not adding really much volume to solving the problem. So those are the kind of things we should be hearing, and not well, we can't allow you to have subsidy if you don't build. Who can build refineries now with which money?
I'd like to add, I'd like to just add that I think one of the major gaps in this whole oil refining story is lack of communication by authorities that even having local refineries will still be connected to the cost, the international cost of crude. So what we might cut out is maybe the cost of transportation of the raw oil somewhere else, and then the refined product back. But the base cost of oil is still high. So yes, we'll save a little, but not maybe as much as people may imagine. And last of all, we should focus on becoming a country that has more efficiency, more productivity, so that we can afford oil at whatever cost it is.
All right, let's look at some messages coming through. Dr. I says, the law to ban migration of doctors is ill-advised with a question mark, considering that junior doctors went on strike in the UK this week. It's ironic that the Nigerian government feel their own doctors are happy in the environments that they work. I shudder at the quality of our National Assembly if bans are the only way to solve problems. Welcome back, AB Bozimo. It's been a while. Okay. And Dan says it's a shame that the government was unable to build a single refinery, but was able to squander 16 trillion naira on subsidy. What a contradiction. Let's take a quick break and we'll continue the conversation on the other side. The WhatsApp number again is 0809 440 981. This is Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. Hi, Joseph. Welcome.
Welcome, Joseph.
Yeah, thanks, Oga.
Some mornings are like that. Well done.
MTN was failing me, 5G, 4G, every G was failing.
Now, wow.
So I just remember, oh, I have Glow, so let me connect with Glow. That's how I got back.
Now, wow, well done. Sometimes, you know, there was a day I was one huge building collapsed in Lagos Island.
Yeah.
I was doing an interview on what's it called? Al Jazeera. Set up everything. The moment I showed up on the screen, network failed. That was how I didn't have my opportunity. I nearly fainted that day.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
It was terrible.
Oh my.
So it's just another of the vicissitudes of our lives here. But, you know, we'll insist on a better country. That's why we do what we do. Well done. Thank you for joining us.
In other places, you have wired network. So you plug it in and it's more stable.
And if there is a breakdown, it means that there was an earthquake somewhere, not
somewhere
unspecified things that, you know, you can't explain, you know. So welcome though, welcome.
Thank you.
Lady Zibby, President, thank you.
Thank you, AB. We appreciate it. And Dr. I definitely missed you. He says it's been a long time.
Okay, yeah. He must have been one of those who knew me when back in the day.
All
Thank you for the opportunity. Okay, we're going. Once your magic headphones come on.
You're listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. It's Zibby and my analyst this morning, AB Bozimo and Joseph Obari. The WhatsApp number to get in touch and be involved is 0809 440 981. Our next story comes from Punch. Now, the governor of Benue State, Samuel Ortom, has asked the federal government to postpone the national population census until all internally displaced persons return to their communities. The NPC on its part says it's ready to hold the exercise that is scheduled for between the 3rd of May and the 5th of May.
Now, you know, one of the purposes of a census is to determine demographics, who lives where and what age range and gender and all that good stuff. And census has a major, purpose in planning and a nation's economy and everything. But it must be stated that there is this problem of internally displaced persons in Benue, perhaps in the Northeast, some parts of Borno, and maybe some other parts of the country where, even up till now, some people may be suffering the vagaries of the former flooding. That said, it's debatable whether that alone should stop the entire census process. I guess in census, determination, you might be able to put a factor to those who may have been displaced based on news stories and all that. I don't know. Now, I don't want to underestimate the very real security implication of internally displaced people. They deserve to be sent back, census or not. People deserve to be back to where they live, their ancestral homes and all that. But to an extent, you might be persuaded to say it's not as widespread a problem that should determine that the census should be done. I have another problem with the census. I'm appalled at the amount that has been budgeted to do the census. And, in the days of the internet, people have made comparisons between the amount we're trying to spend on our census in 3 days and the amount people have spent in other parts of the world on populations 3-5 times ours, and have shown that the amount voted in a country that has lost 16 trillion to oil theft, in a country where we are approaching 71 trillion or billion in terms of our national debt, is preposterous. Again, there does seem to be, to use local parlance, a certain cash out element as this administration is trying to end. All sorts of huge expenditures are being budgeted for, voted for, 869 billion in 3 days for a census. I find it staggering personally. As somebody has said on a lighter note, just distribute the money to us, we'll call in or we send SMS about who we are and you'll get the answers. I'm just saying, the priorities of the government, we had 8 years, 7 years, 10 months and something days to do this census. If we didn't do it then, maybe this time just organize a tidy transition. Let the new government face that. Maybe they can get it done much more economically effectively. I think the amount is appalling and actually a scandal all of its own, separate from the internally displaced people who deserve to be returned to their bases.
Joseph, do you want to add?
Really, I mean, it's captured everything. It's just ridiculous the way we go about things. I think sometimes it's even the methods we use. The problem is that the way we go about doing things is quite different, So it's captured all the things there.
All right, let's take a few messages. JP says, refineries must be privatized as a move forward, and that's what Nupeng should drive. More modular, and also NNPC sell her shares so it's private run with corporate governance. Where there is chaos, there is gain. Transport and exchange on crude is 30% in savings. And another message coming through from Joseph. Joseph Menier says, it's unfortunate that lawmakers or a lawmaker can make such a bill for doctors. The lawmakers should switch salaries and allowances with doctors, and let's see whether the latter will even apply for passport booklets when their take-home pay can't even get them to the bus stops or help with their needs. Tally says, did I hear 86-something billion? Surely sharing 2 billion to each will pay us better. Okay, let's go on to this story coming from Vanguard. Now, workers crippled activities at the Plateau State College of Health Technology over 45 months of unpaid salaries. 45. They barricaded the main gate of the institution, displaying placards with inscriptions about their plight.
This is almost 4 years. I don't have the exact details, but it amounts to administrative negligence and wickedness for people not to be paid for 45 months in a state. This is where Plateau State. What on earth would make the head of that civil service still have a job whose salaries, I bet, have not been interrupted for 1 minute, who has traveled most likely around the world for various training conferences, getting ESTA code and stipends to boot. And yet, under their watch, people are not paid for 45 months. I mean, what are the consequences for such administrative lapses? Those in charge of these institutions should, first of all, not get the, you see, if you make sure that starting from the governor is not paid his salary, his allowances, or anything, then the head of the school, the rector, then the head of administration, when all those people also don't have their salaries, then they would prioritize other people not being paid. We've heard these stories over and over again. The question is, what is the consequence? What recourse do the workers have? Is it to go to the courts? Will the courts honor their case? I am appalled, but it boils down to administrative negligence, and there have to be consequences. Otherwise, these 45 months will go to 46, 48, which will be 4 complete years. And by the time the new government, the person will say it's not their problem. It's appalling, and it actually is a security threat of its own.
I wanted to weigh in here and look at one very terrible part of the story. When the registrar of that institution was called up by the journalist, he said, let me find out. I will get back to you. Perhaps you can come to Panchin and talk to you. I don't know why they are protesting. That is the registrar of a higher institution speaking. You have a major crisis on your hand as an organization. You have no clue. The registrar says he doesn't know why they are protesting. I mean, this is just incredible. The Ministry of Higher Education could not be reached to talk. The registrar doesn't know why. The rector of the institution is not available to speak. Then we have what we call crisis communication. And if you can't recognize that your workers are protesting as a crisis situation, then what are you doing there? It's just terrible.
Let's move on to this story coming from Vanguard. IFAD, which is the International Fund for Agricultural Development, says it has directly invested $604.6 million in Nigeria's agricultural sector through domestic and international co-financing from 2016 till date. Joseph?
Yeah, incredible support that Nigeria keeps getting from IITA, IFAD, and others who are pouring in funds into agriculture in Nigeria. I want to talk about also Africa Development Bank. They are doing a lot, and the results are showing. I mean, go to the supermarkets today, you see Nigerian packaged products on the shelves, and it gladdens my heart. I walk into supermarkets these days, I see our tomatoes packaged, displayed on the shelf, and I can pick it up and buy. They look fine. Individuals are doing a lot. Government, this administration, if one thing they have done is what they've done in the area of rice farming and all that, and support that is going. People are building pyramids of bags of rice these days and so on. But we just need to keep building on this, because agriculture can actually be the greater revenue earner for this country. In many, we have arable land all across the country. It's just that we need to harness the resources, human and otherwise, to begin to develop agriculture consciously as a revenue source for the country. And then we may not even, in fact, there are certain produces that if you look at their value, take something like honey, it costs more than oil, more than crude oil. 1 barrel of honey costs more than crude oil. There are several other agricultural produces that, if you weigh in their value in terms of their commercial value in the market, international market, against the oil, the oil doesn't compare. And then, but we keep all dying over this oil that pollutes the environment and all that. And it's incredible that we can miss such opportunities at all, you know. So these agencies that recognize the importance of agriculture, sadly, in most of the cases where government is supposed to bring counterpart funding, when the money comes to government agencies just share the money anyway. Most ministries of agriculture have direct funding from organizations. Nobody talks about that in the budget. Nobody knows what happens to such funds. It is the private ones that these initiatives touching farmers directly that have helped us a lot. And we really commend organizations that are coming in with interventions.
Right, we've got just about a minute to go, and this is from Vanguard. Now, Amnesty International says, years after the Chibok situation and the abduction of the girls, it does appear that the Nigerian government has not exactly done much to protect children. And this is according to Amnesty International.
We've heard stories about how we've tried to create safe areas. We've tried to do some school fencing and all that, but security, like many other things, has to be organic. You can't just plant one or two things. You have to create communication. You have to create crisis response. You have to create emergency services and all that. So I don't know about Nigeria not protecting children. Pretty much Nigeria is not protecting anyone except the elites. They are the ones who have police in droves around them and all that. And the rest of us are pretty much left to our own devices. So the Chibok girls are, of course, a signature event, but it has been replicated so many times in so many places with so many other communities where there is a general sense of lack of security. And so to that extent, the country must do better. And it's not just groups of people. Individuals are tortured every day. So even the mindset of some of our security people has to be adjusted for them to understand that they are here to support and protect the people and not be the people's oppressors.
Thank you very much for your messages, and special thanks to the analysts, Joseph and AB, for joining us on Freshly Pressed this morning.
Always,
thank you.
Always
Pleasure and privilege are both mine.
Yeah.
And that
President
is all the
Zibby,
time.
thanks so much.
Thank you, Joseph. That is all the time that we have for Freshly Pressed. Do stay with us though. There's a lot more to come on the Smooth Breakfast.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a
Bye,
great
bye.
day.
Thanks so much.
Have a great weekend, Zibby. Thank you.